Hello, I'm Philip Stoten. I'm here at SemiconWest in San Francisco, and I'm joined by Akhil Oltikar of Riverwood Solutions. Akhil, you've just been presenting on the stage here, IoT, innovation, all those areas, and you talked about time to profit, time to success. Is that something that you think some of these startups aren't thinking about early enough in the process? And how do you shorten that time for them? Because that's fundamental to them getting the next round of funding or getting into the market.
Sure, thanks, Phil. You're right, Phil. I think where we have seen working with the startups, whether it's IoT, medical devices, wearables, consumer electronics, one of the key ingredients is from a manufacturing perspective. Do you really know what you're trying to do here? Getting a prototype, one unit, to thousands and millions of units. So getting from one to that kind of a scale, there are several steps and there's a specific process and a standard procedure that you have to really go through without cutting corners when you're talking about a hardware device. So for example, when we talk about the product design itself, do you consider all the DFX inputs, design for manufacturing, design for supply chain? Have you considered that? A prototype is not ready till you can manufacture the prototype. Then after the prototype stage is when you're looking at manufacturing and selecting a manufacturing partner. Who are you going to really partner with? It's not just around the partner having just the capabilities, the factories or the footprints to build the product, but also looking at the cultural fit. Do you have the right core capabilities and development of those capabilities that will scale with your business? So there are several areas that we got to look at and help the startups really navigate through the product life cycle, and how do we really do it right as we go through it, because when it comes to hardware, as you know, you don't really have too many chances of iterations.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting you talk about vendor selection. That's a big part of what you do. And I think typically with a startup, they get excited about maybe using one of the tier one manufacturers and building those relationships. But it's not always the case that the manufacturer that's suitable for them at the very beginning is suitable for them when they scale. How do you deal with that? How do you make sure they've either got the right fit or they've got the path to go from the initial contract manufacturer to the one that will finally perhaps fulfill globally?
There are, of course, there are good stories, there are bad stories, and something in between. And if you really look at the EMS or the contract manufacturer, there are about 10,000 of them. I mean, all from tier one to small mom and pop shops. And what we have seen is not that tier one is always a good fit. Not to say that even the tier 4 are a good fit. It all comes down to what is the product strategy, what are the core requirements for the products to be manufactured. Does the supplier or the CM have the capabilities and, more importantly, the passion to manufacture those kind of products? Can they scale with you? And it could be where you would start off with the tier 2, tier 3 or tier 4 suppliers, depending on what the capabilities and what your requirements are. And as you go beyond that, more matured design and manufacturing process, you may look at more scalability with some of the larger players. So it all comes down to, we have a methodical process of really identifying what those critical requirements are. We assess those requirements through our tools that we have and the data that we have from past dozens and dozens of projects that we have done, and really understand what's a good fit for the product. Not around, just because there is some tier 1 who could manufacture the product, and that could be very well the case, that's okay. But it's a methodical approach, data-driven approach to really understand the requirements and then try and fit the right suppliers or the right partners for manufacturing.
I like that you use the word that they have to have a passion to manufacture, because I think that's a really important issue. Sometimes it feels like particularly some of the bigger manufacturers want lots of these small projects and lots of these small businesses, but will they be able to support them in the long term? So it's actually got to feel like it's the right product for the contract manufacturer as well as the customer. You mentioned one or two examples of where things went well and where things went wrong. Without naming names, what do you think is typical the typical mistakes that people made. You talk about going too fast, but obviously people do want to get to market quickly.
Sure. I think let's start with the product design itself. I mean, there is, as you know, there is a hardware and there's a software aspect to it, right? And right up front in the design of the product, I think these two teams have to come together from a functionality perspective of what the product needs from a software side, and from a design and functionality on the hardware side. I think that's very, very critical, which we have seen in the past, and some of the companies have not really collaborated on those two fronts. Specific to hardware, I'll give you one other examples where the selection for the contract manufacturer was made, not a good selection in terms of what the capabilities were, and the customer ended up changing the contract manufacturer 4 times in the process, and unfortunately didn't really go down too well with the company and the business. But on the other side, we have seen customers where it was a very methodical process around what the product is, who can manufacture it, are they the right partner culturally as well, and a good fit. Where should the manufacturing be done, whether it's Asia or in the US or Mexico. And really methodical approach to determine that partner. And then most importantly, it's not about what you negotiate with your CM or your manufacturing or your supply chain partners, but how do you manage them as you go through. Negotiating is or around MSAs and so on, but at the end of the day, when you really get the product cranking, supply chain cranking, how do you manage that? I think that's critical. Many of our customers have really embedded with the CEM, work and collaborated, but it's very important not to assume that your contract manufacturer or your supply chain partners are going to care about your product as much as you do. So you have to really manage those.
Yeah, and I know, for example, one of the examples you gave was a supply chain design where you actually won an award for that. So congratulations on that. That's really clearly showing the value there. And we really do need these innovative companies to bring out new products, but they need to really connect with people like you to be able to get them to market, to get them there, to make better decisions and to make better products. Akhil, thanks for your time, thanks for your presentation today, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you very much.